Hello, this is Michael from CharmHealth for our 2025 New User webinar. Today, we are going to cover how to do the new things that a practice would need to set up Charm. This is the list of things that we'll be covering today. First, we are going to cover the facility and user settings. Next, we are going to cover the settings and health trackers. Next, we are going to cover the calendar settings. After that, we are going to cover the patient settings. Then we are going to cover the initial billing settings. After that, we will cover the lab settings. We will then cover the template settings. We will also cover how to customize the encounters. We will also cover the creation of questionnaires, the creation of a new patient, how to book a new appointment, how a patient sets up their patient portal. We'll show how templates are pulled into an encounter. All right, with that, let's get started. Without further ado, let's go set some things up. All right, so we're going to go into settings. Right here, this is a place where all of your configurations are set up. What you could do to add your facility members, you need to go to Settings, Facility, Facility Members. Any members that you want to add could be added here by clicking plus member. The plus member sign, you add your first name, your last name, and the email. Over here, you put the role. The role defines what this practice member can or cannot do. Over here defines which particular facility. You could add them to multiple facilities if you need to. Once you click Add, the member will be considered invited. The invited member will show up here. And you also have an option here to re-invite the members if that is something that you need to do, if for some reason they lost the email. Once they accept the invitation, they will show up here as one of the active members. Another thing you're going to need to do is go into Settings, Facility, Facility List. The facilities could be edited here. If you go to here, Edit. You could also go here to plus New Facility and add your information in here. Your facility logo could be uploaded here. It must have an aspect ratio of 1:1. So put your facility name here, facility address line here, and this information line 1, 2, etc. All this information does show up in the facility list and goes on the claims as well. Next, let us go to facility members to show you how to add a new facility member. To add a member, hit plus member. Add a name. Here is where you select the role. The role defines what the facility member is capable of. If the member has the same email is being used for another EHR or PHR account, you will get this error message. You won't get this error message if the email is proper and not being used for an EHR or PHR account. Once you invite the member, it will show up in the invited members. You could also resend the invitation if they lost it somehow from this section. Once the member has accepted their invitation, it will show up in the Active Members section. Roles, as we said earlier, are defining what a facility member can or cannot access. These are the existing roles. You can edit them, or you could create a brand new role. Also, please note, the practice admin is a role that cannot be edited. It's all grayed out. The practice admin is known as the owner of the account, and no one can edit. No one but one person can be the practice admin. A role of similar privileges is the office manager. Give this role to people if you want EPCS set up. You'll need one person who is the office manager and another person who is a physician or some type of role that could sign encounters and prescribe medications. Okay, let us go through some of the sections of the roles and go over some of the counterintuitive things. Most of this is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so if we want to make a new role, hit plus new role. This is what sections they could see of the patient records. This is where they could see the past encounters of a previous encounter. This is whether or not they could see PHR shared data. This is if they could access the quick notes section of the patient's file. This section here gives all the permissions to note that this person is a provider who can prescribe medications. This is very important if you're counting if someone is a provider of sorts. The rest of these are kind of ancillary. You could add this start encounter and enter vitals if you just want someone to be like a nurse who just does some of the pre-noting things and record the vitals. This is lab results. The transmit option is available if you have e-prescription or e-fax. Certain states don't allow e-fax though. This permission here, appointment booking, actually allows the person with this particular role to be booked. That means that someone could book them. You want this person to book appointments, go select this one. This option here allows this person to be booked. Just note that. This is the various sections of the analytics. This is the messages section. This is what determines whether or not this user can or cannot bulk compose SMSs, view or make outgoing calls with our new phone integration system. The directory is the list of our contacts, often used for faxing or calling patients or texting patients. This is the settings section, so this determines which parts of the settings this facility member can see. Practice access means they could access everything. Personal access means they could only change the things that are associated with their user. Same for encounter and messages. This determines whether or not people, you want individual members to ask for telehealth setup, or whether or not you want someone in the practice to have the practice to ask for other people. Scoped access. Under most cases, leave scoped access off. So what this does is if you have everything turned on but you have scoped access, many patients will not be available to this user. They will only be able to see members that they are listed as the care team for. Otherwise, those patients will be completely invisible to them. Some practices find this useful, but most do not. But it's an interesting tool if you need to use these features. Once you've added everything you need, hit add, and that will create that role. Later on, as we showed you before, you could add a role, the role that you created, to whichever member you see fit. Next, we are going to cover the health trackers under settings. So, we have Flowsheets here. We can make a flow sheet like this. We can add a heading, which is just a list of words for where you could add a category of things. Then over here, we have instructions. So this is just a place where someone could write anything down, and it will be useful to record for this day. The next thing we can have are vitals. This could pull from the existing vitals section of various things. We could also add a new custom vital here if we need to. The labs here can pull from the labs section, whatever we have put in labs. So we could look up existing labs, put them in here. This feature will allow lab results to move into Charm if you have the lab integration set up. We also have the feature of allowing questionnaires to flow. So the answers from certain general questionnaires. And the answers from there could auto-populate in here if that is something you need. Custom parameters. This could be something that you record. It does not pull from anywhere in particular, but you must manually add this into the flow sheet as you see fit. Okay. Next section we have is the treatment plan. I cannot show you this on this account, but it assists practices in recording and tracking patient conditions, possible treatments, and an action plan. This is available only on paid accounts. We do recommend you move to a paid account once you are ready. The health screening. So what health screening is, you could actually track to see how old a patient you have should be available for a certain type of screening. So, and we could also have it based on gender as well, or sex. And you could choose the date range and the frequency. This is something you could do for what types of health screenings you and your practice do for your patients. Under here, under preferences, this will pull information from the treatment plan section and shows which sections you want to be able to share with the patient in the patient portal. We are going to cover the calendar settings. So, for you to set up your account, please go into facility timings and make sure you have your timings set up. If it's marked as a holiday, this is marked as a day of the week that your practice does not work. Each facility can have its own time zone as you see fit. This is good to set up for each practice, especially if you're working in multiple time zones. Provider timings. You need to set their time zone for this person for how people can book them. This is where you define the working hours of that facility member. And this is when you say they are not working during these days. You could also add exceptions. Normally, if you are a facility member that is a paid account, you can configure this. So what this could do is this could create certain days that you are working that you would ordinarily not be working. Like maybe this person just is working on this Sunday. Or alternatively, it could also be used to like show as a break, like next Friday, they're just not having. We also have another way of marking that off, that they are not working. But this is mostly, the unique thing about this is it allows you to mark where a person would be working when they ordinarily are not. That's the unique thing about this section. Online appointments. This is a feature. It will actually kind of look like this at first because they like to hide things if you're not using them. But once you're using it, your visit types will show up here and which time slots can patients book from. This online appointment section is used for two things in Charm. It is referencing what the patient portal is looking at, but it also determines what types of appointments are booked in the web embed calendar. Approval for appointments. This means that if it's not required, it means that it will automatically be booked as soon as the patient requests it from the patient portal or the web embed. If it's for new patients only, that means you will need to wait for new patients to be approved. Otherwise, existing patients will automatically be booked as soon as they request it. The appointment request notification email, if you set to required, it will be sent to a certain facility member about when it's requested. Allow patients to book within this time frame, 1 hour in advance and 180 in the future. You could change this though as you see fit. So you could do it 24 hours in advance and 180 days in the future. Over here, we could define which pre-screening form you want to send to the patient when they book the appointment. This, however, is only available if you are in the paid version of CharmHealth. The patient settings. The text phone call verifications allow patients to receive text messages and voice notifications. This is mostly used for patients to get appointment reminders. The phone calls features allows patients to call you. If you want any more information about this, request it in the add-on section and it will be on your pricing page. Here is where we configure email notifications. These are the conditions that allow an email to be sent out to the patients. If you want to change the content, you click Edit Email Content right here, and you would change what the wording is on the emails. Please note that this might be disabled for you, but if you need to be able to edit this, you will need to send an email to support@charmhealth.com. The other aspect is patient notifications. Under patient notifications, the patient record ID can be modified here. By default, it will start with PAT and then ID number, and it'll just be like the number. So patient PAT 001 is what you'll probably have for your dummy patient. This where it says starting ID, it's like what number is it starting from at this point. This is if you want to have a custom patient record ID. If you're not messing with that, just let it be. These are the defaults for when you are adding a patient. Please note that it is very good to probably have the PHR invitation required set to yes, if that is not the case. This will allow the patient to be sent an invitation anytime you add a patient record into the system. They will be sent an email as soon as you add the patient. Next, let's go to demographics. These are the sections of Charm of the patient details. They can be modified as well. You could turn them on or off as you see fit. Some of these gray ones need to be on by default, but some of these others you could choose to have. This one if you're like working multiple countries. We also have custom fields. So if you want to have other fields that are not ordinarily added in there because it's specific to your practice, please just add it in the custom fields here. You could also mark if your patient is dead if sometimes you'll need to do that. Over here, whether you could turn on or off the preferred communications, whether or not they receive text, email, or voice notifications. Next, let's go cover the referral source. The referral source allows you to actually note how the patient found out about your practice. You could add a new source here, and it's just a word. And then you could actually add specific sources of specific people or specific instances of like, here's a newspaper, Here's a specific source. You could like add like, I don't know, new, for example. Next, we'll cover the categories. These are a feature that are not often used, but is a way for you to split apart the groups of patients. Sometimes you just want to group patients one way or the other. Alerts. You could add alerts here if you need them, or like to be associated with the patient. If you have the custom branded app, you could use announcements. So the alert configuration, if an alert is turned on, the patient, you could make it show up immediately. You could also make the sticky note appear immediately here, which is just sort of similar to an alert. Use them as you see fit. This is a very interesting thing here. Sometimes people get annoyed by this, whether or not the patient tab, if it's set up in a new tab, they keep on creating new tabs every time they see a new patient. Or you could just stay in the same tab. So inline, which means it's still, you are working within the new tab, whether or not you go to the patient dashboard or to the encounter page. But if you want to be able to like switch between tabs, you can do it that way. Next, we are going to cover the basics of what you're going to need to set up your account for billing. So if you're only a cash practice, at minimum, you're going to at least need to do this part. If you're doing the more advanced stuff, you will also need to do this as well. First thing, if you're going to be doing billing at all, you're going to need to add your procedure codes. Procedure codes can be added here. You could add an individual code, put in the code, the description, the charge. Don't worry about discount. Well, usually discounts will be added later. You usually don't add them here. So the main ones that when you first create a Charm account, you'll have procedure, non-covered services. Procedure is a code that you will be sending to insurance. Non-covered services are services that will not be sent to insurance. So that's a kind of an interesting, useful feature. You could also add your modifiers if you need them as you see fit. If you want to add a lot more procedures at one time, you could go import export codes. And if you want to do the more advanced way, you can import a bunch of procedure codes in a CSV file, a comma separated values file. The rest you can work with, but this is just for bare minimum what you would need for setting up. I will cover fee schedules though, briefly. Basically, this is where you have the alternate prices from what you have from the procedure codes. The procedure codes are also known as the master list. The fee schedules are like the alternate price. And then if I want to add a fee schedule, it'll have all the things from the procedure codes here, and this has no differences. What is the difference? If I want to say instead 128, I charge 100, then if they are part of this plan. Also note, you can make it provider specific, patient specific. When it says patient specific, we mean like by a category. It needs to be tied to a category. This, if it's tied to a payer, then you need to map it to a payer. Facility, then you have to choose which facility, or none. And that's just a fee schedule that you apply for a reason other than the ones listed above. Okay, on to the next part. Now, we are going to go into lab settings. You go into Customize Labs right here. You could click here to add your custom labs and tests. If a lab name is here, your tests and panels go here. When you are done, hit Add. For existing labs, if you want to add specific tests or panels, you could just go here and hit Customize, and then you could add the tests right here. And then add the tests. If you want to customize some parts of the lab interface, you could change which member it's tied to. You could choose to show your favorite tests. And these are the print formats. If you are printing out your lab orders, your lab requisition forms. We do not have any lab integrations set up. If you want to add a lab integration, please go to the plug button, then go to lab integrations, and request your integration here. Now we are going to cover the template settings that you need for setting up your brand new Charm account. We already briefly covered the email templates, so let's go to My Templates. My Templates are templates that are associated with your individual user. Practice templates are templates that are shared amongst every single person in your practice. That includes all facilities. If you want to add a new template, you could do this here or here. But by default, the template that you newly create will be in My Templates. We'll show you how to share it later. You can choose to edit your existing templates here if you need to. But let's for now create a SOAP template. So here, whenever you create a new template, it will send you to this page. You put in a test, we'll call this the name, test SOAP 2. The default of SOAP template is selected here, but you could choose another type of template here as you see fit for other types of templates. Hit Proceed. Here, it will show you the various types of sections from the SOAP template that will be put into this SOAP template. So, you don't need to have every section, just have the ones that you want to keep. When you are ready to create the SOAP note, and you've selected all of the sections that you want to have in this SOAP template, click Add. Sometimes it's hard to see all of the little components, so sometimes it's required to zoom out. You do this by holding the Command or Control, if you're on a Mac, to be able to see all of the components so that you can actually view all of the options that you can add. Let's go over these particular components. The heading is just a bunch of words. So I could just give this, I don't know, we can just do that. Sort of mark this as childhood history. And it's just a bunch of words. This could just be a label. It is not something that could be answered. It's just there. The next thing we have, we could go over here for like simple question. So a simple question is simply a question, and it has a answer that could be written down in multi-lines or one line. Over here, the generated text will indicate that this is the idea for what the question is and where the question will be, and this is where the answer will be. You could choose to add like lots of space. You could add it as a new line or a space in between. This is just indicating, or you could just choose to have the question gone altogether. Only the answer will remain. That's another option. I will cancel this and we could do this again properly. Simple question. test question, allow multi-line answer, and then click OK. Now, let's go to the checklist. The checklist doesn't even have a question. Please note that. That is one of the things that makes it unusual. So what we can do is it could just be, let's see, we have one of these. These will be options for the provider or the patient to select. We'll get into that a little bit later. And see here, the generated text is just the answer. But I could just add, I could just put in like related illnesses in childhood, and then it will colon, and then the $ answer will just have these particular things show up after it. Now, let's go over the single choice option. So this is what we can do if we want to have a question that could have multiple answers, but only one of them can be true. We can put in an option for 1. So answer 1, 2, yes, no. We could also include the others option as you see fit. And if one of them is true, the other cannot. All right. Next, let's go grab the multi-choice option. As you notice, there is a question field. As for the options, any of them could be true, not just one. So I could go whatever makes sense for you in your practice. But if I click on one, the other could be true as well. Next we have is the rating scale. And this is where we can put in the min scale and the max scale of tracking any kind of concept. Instead of just having the question, literally, we could actually change how it looks in the chart and say pain rating, and then colon, and then the answer. Okay. Next, we could have the yes/no question. So this could be a yes or no question. And then you could have a specific generated text if yes. You could actually just completely rewrite it if you see fit and have the entire generated text be based off that. So it could look differently in the question and versus the answer. But we'll just leave that as is. Now let's go over the notes section. If I just leave this as is, it will just be a field for which the provider can just write whatever information they see fit. But we could also have default information flowing in here. So I could go in here, patient name. So I'd go copy, paste, patient name. Okay. Needs. We could also, or you could say, and then I could go in here and select allergies, copy this, paste this here. Oh, I'll need to enter so that the patient has the following allergies. And then that will just show up in here. It's pretty cool. You could just have, and I'll just pull information from whatever placeholder makes sense for you in your practice. I could also add one here. Let's see. Go to notes. Name. Copy. Paste. They are taking the following medications. And then I could go, these are the medications that they currently are using. And that will pull the information in here. So it'll look pretty nice. You can also edit. Oh no, you can't. Never mind. You could edit them if you see fit later after the encounter, or even after you hit save. Now, let me show you the table. Table is where you could just put in a column of rows and columns of fields that you want to add in here as you see fit. This will not work with questionnaires. The image is a pretty interesting tool. You could load an image here. Once you do that, the image you load will be an idealized body or body part that can be drawn on so that you could indicate where various things you notice or plan to do with the patient. Often you add just notes fields. I think they're pretty useful. Just leave them blank, and the practice will usually find something useful to do with them. All right, that's it for adding the SOAP template. We're going to hit save. More often than not, I recommend, to select will do it later. You could add the default values, which would be like the default answers. So they show up in, let's see, we added that. To search the template we just created. If I want to share this with everyone else in the practice, or I want to get this in the questionnaire, I'm going to need to hit share, and I need to have it set to share to practice. If you select share to library, that sends it to everyone in Charm. Use that if you want to donate to our community project, but if you want to refrain from doing that, don't do this. So I'm just going to hit share. And this will be here. And if I click that, practice templates. If I look up SOAP, I'll see the first SOAP here, and then the test SOAP 2025. Alrighty then. Okay, now let's create a report type template. So hit proceed. Oh. So let's select the group. So what these are ways that you could actually check and do placeholders to create some sort of report that you could send to like someone somewhere. Let's use, for example, let's do this. I will call this make it a note to school. So we could send this to, for our patients. So we'll go patient name. So I'm going to go copy this, came to our office on, and then the group here, I could do encounter, select the date, or the signed date, copy, paste. We have confirmed that they are sick and need days rest away from school. Signed, and we can add the signature field here. So I'm going to go to the provider, signed, name. We'll copy the name, paste the name, and then put in the signature. The signature pulls from the signature section in settings, encounter, signature. And I guess we could start. And this is something that can be sent out via fax. Next, we're going to edit the encounter settings, particularly the part in preferences. So here, this is where you could edit your vitals. You could turn them on or off here. You could add custom vitals here. They could have a name. They have several different types. Number, plain text if it's just a word category, rating scale, or text with options, meaning that you have like an option with a particular name. So that's what it could be for different categories. And unit can be blank or whatever makes sense to you for whatever type of practice you are doing. Over here, we have the signature. You should put your signature over here. You're allowed to go to the signature pad and draw on it as you see fit. Or you could upload an image as a file. Next, we are going to go into preferences. The unlock option allows the doctor to open the encounter after it's signed. That removes the signature. The rest of these are pretty self-explanatory. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now here, we could set up the different types of chart notes. The quick is and brief are short versions of the chart note, but they don't have every section. The comprehensive and SOAP have every section. However, the comprehensive, everything has like a notes field pre-configured. The SOAP has all of the features, including the annotated image and the table, that can't be done in the comprehensive. The SOAP is more flexible than the comprehensive. But if you don't want to build a SOAP note yet, you could work with comprehensive for starting your charm practice. The default template. So what this does, this will auto-populate the template into the encounter as soon as you start the encounter. That is defined by the chart note preferences defined by provider. We also have this feature to be done by role. So that means all people who are of a very particular type of provider could have the same template. Over here, you could customize which sections of the SOAP template you are using. We could enable Chart 360 so that more features could be available and you could see more of the encounter. More parts of the patient's file inside of the encounter. Okay. So now we are going to try to make sure we can build a questionnaire that could pull questions from the SOAP template that we just created. First, we need to go into My Templates, look up the template that we just created, and we need to make sure that we share it with the practice. If we share it to the library, that does not go to the practice as we needed, and everyone that uses Charm will be able to access it. So we hit share. Then, if we look in practice templates, oh, I did it twice. Now, if we go into the templates, we should see that this practice templates is here. So, now this can be accessed in the questionnaires. Now, let's go to the next step. Next thing we're going to need to do is build the questionnaire itself, now that the SOAP template is now available. Okay, let's go add the questionnaire. All right, so now if we want to build a brand new questionnaire, we could call this like Test Questionnaire 2025. There are various different types of questionnaires, but in this case, we should be using a general questionnaire. Consent forms don't have widgets, which we'll go over a bit later. Feedback form and pre-screen forms are sent under different conditions. This questionnaire for the general questionnaire is sent out before the patient's visit. The consent form is too, but the general questionnaire has widgets, which we are going to go into very soon. Okay, let's go to items. Over here, we have each item. So this could be like a question or a group of questions. So we have things here where it says component widget. You'll see here listed are components, and down here are widgets. Components, they do not copy information into the encounter or anywhere really. Once they're answered, they will just simply be in that questionnaire, which you could use for reference later. So you could put like a signature as you see fit. You could do and you could also do like divvy things out with sections. Widgets, on the other hand, these are actually often sets of questions. For example, we could do allergies. And then this will be like, this is a place for the patient to input their allergies, and you will be able to reconcile them in the allergy section later. The other thing we're going to do is go into the history of present illness, and I could choose a template, and I could choose this. And from here, it will copy all the questions from the history of present illness into this questionnaire. We will see that a little bit later. So let's see. We have questions. This is just basically like it's a question that can be answered with lines, one line or multiple lines. A question with options. A question with options is similar to what we had before, except it's always multi-choice. It acts like the multi-choice as we did in the SOAP template. Rating scale, same as what the SOAP template had. Yes, no question. It's not as customizable as it is in the SOAP template, but it's either the question and then the answer is yes or no. You can't customize the output as much. A label is just a bunch of words of text. You could all right. And then what I can also do is hit add. All right. And then I can go here. Question. I could go here, section. And then I can make it a date and signature. Then I could click add. So this section will collapse these two things under this section. If you need like collapsible questions that need to be hidden but only answered under certain conditions. The other items. So let's see. We have these personal details. Personal details, it's usually just the stuff that you would have if you want the patient to edit what you already have information on them. The primary contact details. Primary contact details are the questions about where the patient can be contacted via email, whether it's be their home address, phone number, etc. Primary insurance details is a mandatory field, and if the patient wants to answer that question because they have insurance and you have insurance you want people to answer, send them a questionnaire with this and you won't ever have to fill that out manually, as long as the patient puts in their information correctly. Medications. Medications are places where the patient could report what medications they're currently taking. Supplements, it's a report what supplements they are currently taking. The other one is like chief complaints, symptoms, history of present illness. All this is just the same as the information that you put in your SOAP encounter, and you could just pull that information in. As long as you have a template, you could actually have those questions populate in. If you don't have any templates, it'll say no templates available, because you need to have templates that associated with that section for it to work. Okay? Okay. I think that's it for creating this test questionnaire. So now we are going to try to create a patient portal for the patient to answer this question. Okay, now we are going to show you the various ways you could try to add patients into the patient portal. First, you could go click on the Patients tab here. Your list of patients are in here. You could click here to click Add Patient. The first name, last name, date of birth, and birth sex are mandatory fields. If you are sending a PHR invitation to the patient, the email field will be mandatory. If it's not required, you'll see that the dot disappears. So, this is one way to add a patient into the patient portal after you fill out this information. Also, you have the option to extract data from the driver's license here. Now, another way to add a patient to the patient portal, if you have a bunch of patients to add, you could import patients as a CSV file. If you import the patients as a CSV file, the patients will be added into the system. Keep in mind you could only import a maximum of 500 at a time. A CSV file is edited in Microsoft Excel. Please note you cannot create this if you are using Microsoft Office on a Macintosh computer. Other spreadsheet programs like Numbers will work just fine though. Now, here's another way to add patients. You can go into the calendar. You could choose to book an appointment. And if your patient is new, you could go to click here to add new patient. So we can add the email address here. And I'm selecting here to say send PHR invitation. I've added the bare minimum information required to create a patient in here. He will be added to support for Charm, that facility. You could also choose to add to multiple facilities if you needed. Now that I added the patient in here, I'm going to book a patient with Michael Techler. I will add visit type, a new patient visit. And here I could send him the questionnaire that I just created. So the test questionnaire 2025. I have now booked this patient and I have sent them a link in the patient portal. Here is what the patient will see in their email. Let's go click on this. We'll try to open up another tab. Check your email. Put in the code. Then you should be able to get the time zone. Put in your time zone. These questions will show up here. We're going to mark that we have no known drug allergies. If you want to fill them out, you would just type them in here. No food allergies, no environmental allergies. We will put in an answer. We will select one of these options. We will show that this test section shows up, and now it asks for the date. Today is the 8th, and then I could go hit submit. Now it is marked as submitted. Now that the patient has submitted the questionnaire, we will see the questionnaire if we go into the patient file. Then we go to patient details, and then you could go to questionnaires. The answer questionnaire will show up right here. If you want to reconcile information into the questionnaire from the allergies and medications, you go click here. So, and then hit preview, then hit save. Now this patient's various allergies have been adjusted. So now this information will be up to date, and you could change this later if you need to. You can see the other answers. This is what we'll see. There's various parts of the calendar. There is the list view, the day view, the week view, and the month view. But we will only see today in the list view. You can go back and forth in time if you need to. To start the encounter, we go to here and hit Encounter Start. We will do soap. All right, now you see here, because we did this, there will be a default template showing up in here. We're not going to use this for today. we are going to look at the questionnaires. What we are going to do here is reconcile the information from the questionnaires. So here we click Reconcile. Choose to add these here if we want to. And we could also choose to answer all the questions here because we clicked Add All. Then we scroll down to hit Preview. This will update the allergies and the content from the history of present illness. We hit Save. Then the answers right here were put in to the encounter. If you want to put information in the diagnosis code, you go to here and hit DX, and then select Diagnosis. Go to Add DX. Sure. As mentioned before, these are things where we could do drawing on this. So let's try to draw on this annotated image. I could just draw this. And we could also put in characters and text. Type in some information. That makes sense for you. And you will see that it updates whatever idealized body you're working on. We have a place for adding educational resources. It will pull information from the diagnosis codes into here, and you are able to share that to the patient portal. Pretty cool, huh? If you want to add handouts manually, you could choose to upload documents from local drive or Charm documents. I will put in some test instructions right now. The procedure codes. Whichever works for this. So I will save it. Now, I'm going to sign this encounter. It will tell me that once signed, I cannot edit this encounter. Do you want to enter anyway? This is sort of true. Once an encounter is signed, the signature needs to be removed for it to be edited. All right. So now we have the unlock option. If you wanted to unlock it to remove the signature, you could do that, so you could edit this encounter again. But you will always need to provide a reason. Addendums, it's just a bunch of information. You can just type whatever makes sense for you. We have reports. The new report that we just generated, I could show you the answers to how that looks. And if I need to edit it, I could say 3. Save it. If we had eFax, you'd have an option to fax this out. You could choose to print this out, or I could choose to share this with the patient, in which case I will share with this patient. Now, let us go look at where the Resource Center is, where you could answer any further questions you may have about Charm. Go to Help, then go to Resource Center. Over here, you could look up any questions you may have about Charm. Additionally, you could go to charmhealth.com. Then after that, you can look on here for Need Help, and you could talk to your customer or service representatives here. We start with AI answers, but our support reps can help you with any questions you may have. Thank you for attending our Charm 101 webinar. Please follow our social media for any updates. Our contact phone number is 855-571-5557. Thank you for attending.